Jesus went out again beside the sea, and all the crowd was coming to him, and he was teaching them. And as he passed by, he saw Levi, the son of Alphaeus, sitting at the tax booth, and he said to him, "Follow me." And he rose and followed him. And as he reclined at table in his house, many tax collectors and sinners were reclining with Jesus and his disciples, for there were many who followed him. And the scribes of the Pharisees, when they saw that he was eating with sinners and tax collectors, said to his disciples, "Why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners?" And when Jesus heard it, he said to them, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners." You know, what strikes me firstly about this passage is in verse 14, it says, as he passed by, he saw Levi, and he's in his tax booth sitting there on the shore. And I kind of wondered, for all these fishermen, they saw Levi every day. His tax booth is on the shore probably so he could observe how many fish they were catching. So he could say, "Here's how much you owe me in taxes for all the fish." And day after day, these fishermen would see Levi there at the tax booth. They would see him, and they probably started despising him, holding a grudge against him. Just the sight of him probably made them sick. There's the tax collector. So I love this in verse 14 where it says Jesus saw him. And we can kind of see Levi then through Jesus' eyes. He saw Levi differently than all the fishermen did. Jesus said, "Come follow me." He must have had some kind of compassion on him or sensation that he was going to be in this man's life. How differently Jesus saw him than all the way the fishermen probably saw him. I want to pray that God gives me eyes to see people like Jesus saw people.
As I came back to this text this time, what struck me was how open Levi was to just walk away. I mean, he walked away from his livelihood, his reputation, his job, his security. And there must have been something so compelling about Jesus that he just put all that aside. And it makes me aware he must have been someone who knew of his need for him. That there was something in Levi that was already looking and searching for a Savior, for meaning, for someone who could answer his heart's deepest cry. And because of that, he was a sick person knowing he needed to be well. He needed the great physician.
And that's really what this text is about, where Jesus gives his own mission statement. He basically says, "I'm a physician. People who know they need a physician are people who are sick." So that's the key. To have business with Jesus, we have to recognize that we need a physician, that we have sin sickness, and we need his remedy.
And it's really in Jesus' presence when we recognize that. Jesus had to show up and call Levi out for him to recognize of his sickness and follow him. What I love about this passage is right after he calls him out, he invites Levi to eat with him and to recline at his table. And all the other sinners and tax collectors are there reclining with Jesus. And so the question that I have is, who's at your table? Who are you inviting to dinner? Not just at church, but the ones that you're inviting to your own dinner table and eating and having fellowship. Because that's really the place where life change occurs, is when you're fellowshipping with one another in the presence of God.
I love that. And even the table image of the church and what we do every Sunday, coming forward in communion and inviting others to join us, not only to our own tables, but to the Lord's table. And
Well, just combining those two thoughts is realizing not just who do I have at my table, but also recognizing that if Jesus invites me to his table, that my posture towards that ought to be just gratitude that I'm even at the table, that if he's the physician and I'm the one who's sick, that he would invite me, instead of these scribes who are kind of sitting outside the house saying who should be allowed at that table and who shouldn't. Sometimes that's the posture of my heart, but instead it ought to be, wow, I get to be at his table. He has come to rescue me, to heal me, that I'm more like these tax collectors and sinners than I am like the people who think they have it all together.